I watched her carefully as she poured the wine. She was smiling, chatting, pretending this was just another quiet Sunday dinner. But her eyes? They weren't smiling. My name is Julian Mercer. I'm 35 years old, an independent furniture maker based in Asheville, North Carolina. I've spent the last decade building my business from the ground up, custom tables, handcrafted chairs, restoration work, and I've spent the last 2 years watching my mother-in-law, Sylvia, try to quietly push me out of the family. And that night, the night everything changed, I finally saw what she was capable of. It wasn't just her tone when she spoke to me. It was the way she'd pause when I entered the room, the way she called me your husband instead of my name when talking to her daughter. Little things, small jabs, disguised as manners. She once rearranged the family photo wall and forgot to rehang the frame with me in it. When I mentioned it, she smiled and said, "Oh, that one must have fallen. Maybe next time we'll take a better one." Next time never came. At one point, she tried to convince my wife to take the kids for a girls-only weekend at her lake house. Just the three of them. No husbands. Just a chance to reconnect as women, she said. When my wife hesitated, Sylvia added, "Well, it's not like Julian's really involved in that part anyway." She hated the way I lived, how I worked with my hands, wore flannel to family brunches, and never joined the gossip about market trends or real estate investments. I wasn't what she wanted for her daughter. She didn't say it outright. She didn't have to. I'd always brushed it off, kept my head down, tried to show up with a smile, because my wife deserved peace, not conflict. But that night, when the smiles were just a little too wide and her hands moved just a little too carefully, I could feel it. Something in the air had changed. And Sylvia, she wasn't hiding it anymore. It got to the point where I started documenting things, not publicly, not even in a journal. Just small notes in my phone, times, places, comments, the kinds of things no one else would think twice about, but I couldn't ignore anymore. Like the time she accidentally spilled wine on my presentation samples. The night before a holiday show, didn't even apologize, just said, "The tablecloth needed a wash anyway," laughed, walked away. Or when she told my wife that a real man would have taken a government job, like her father, that he'd never trust a paycheck that came from sawdust. There was even a week, the same week my wife and I finished building our first piece together, that Sylvia slipped a couples therapy brochure into my coat pocket. Didn't say a word, just tucked it in. Like I wouldn't notice, like she was planting a seed. I stopped trying to win her over long ago. And that night, I realized something had changed. This wasn't disdain. It wasn't passive aggression. It was something colder. But it wasn't just the jabs. It was the way she'd offer to help, then vanish, the way she'd smile in front of others, and drop it the moment I walked into the room. I stopped trying to win her over long ago. And that night, I realized something had changed. This wasn't disdain. It wasn't passive aggression. It was something colder. It was intent. And in her eyes, for the first time, I didn't see disdain. I saw calculation. You don't really marry a person. You marry their family. I didn't understand that when I proposed to Elena 6 years ago. I just knew I loved her. Her laugh, her mind, the way she looked at life like it was a problem she could always solve. I'd never felt that seen before. Never felt that wanted, but Sylvia, her mother, never looked at me like that. From the very first dinner, she smiled like she was sizing me up for a return label. It wasn't about love. It was about status. I wasn't from the right family, didn't go to the right school. My business, handcrafted furniture, wasn't serious enough for her daughter. "He's good with tools," I heard her say once while she thought I was out of earshot. "But can he really provide?" Elena brushed it off. "She's just old-fashioned." But I knew what Sylvia was. She was entitled, controlling, and far more dangerous than she looked. At first, I thought she was just cold, then passive-aggressive. Then I realized she was strategic. She never attacked directly. She needled. "Oh, is that your car? I thought Elena would be in something safer." "Furniture? Isn't that a hobby more than a career?" "No grandkids yet. TikTok, right? Little jabs. Never cruel enough to confront. Always just subtle enough to make me look sensitive if I pushed back." Elena tried to keep the peace. She loved her mom, I get that. But the more I stood my ground, the more Sylvia pressed. She'd invite us to dinner, then forget to cook for my allergies. She'd rearrange our home when she visited, just helping clean up. She once gave me a book on finding your true calling, with a handwritten note inside, "Still time to start over." You're young. She meant it. Still, I stayed polite, firm, but not rude, because I wasn't going to let her come between me and Elena, and it worked for a while. We bought a house. Business was good. We started planning for a baby, and that's when Sylvia really changed. She started showing up unannounced, started calling Elena late at night, crying about how cut off she felt, started planting seeds of doubt. "Don't you think Julian works too much? Do you really want your child growing up in a house like that? Are you sure he's not hiding something?" Elena told me everything. She was torn, confused, but she still had my back until the dinner. The same dinner. The one that changed everything. Not because it came out of nowhere, but because I'd started to notice the signs. The way Sylvia hovered near the kitchen more than usual. The way she offered to pour drinks for everyone, except herself. I'd seen the shift in her weeks earlier. A lingering look at a birthday brunch. A comment about how I seemed tired lately, said with that fake concern she wore like jewelry. She even brought over a bottle of wine one night, insisting Elena and I relax and connect. I didn't drink it. Something in her tone felt off, too intentional. So I started paying attention, not obsessively, just enough. I kept receipts, logged visits. I even noticed she had started dropping by when Elena wasn't home. Once I checked the outdoor camera footage. She arrived carrying a bag of groceries and left with nothing, just dropped them off in the kitchen and vanished. Even after Elena and I had a child, nothing changed. I thought maybe a grandchild would soften Sylvia. Maybe she'd finally accept me as part of the family. But if anything, she just got more subtle, more insidious. She'd smile in front of Elena, then ignore me when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd bring gifts, but never for me, and sometimes not even for our daughter. "Sorry, forgot she was allergic to wool," she said once, handing over a clearly labeled sweater. It wasn't forgetfulness, it was precision. Even our daughter started to notice. "Why doesn't Grandma like you?" she asked me once, without malice, just curious. I didn't answer. How do you explain that kind of venom to a child? How do you explain subtle hatred without turning it into poison yourself? Sylvia never stopped pushing. She'd call Elena after visits, whispering concerns. Julian seemed distant. "Are you sure he's okay around the baby?" "She deserves stability, don't you think?" She even talked to Henry once, her husband, about taking Elena and the baby on a mother-daughter getaway. Just the three of them. I wasn't invited, wasn't even mentioned, as if I was an afterthought in my own family. But I never exploded, never gave her the scene she was hoping for. I stayed calm, patient, because I knew people like Sylvia exposed themselves eventually. All you have to do is let them keep performing. And then one day, the invitation came. A formal dinner, family only. She said she wanted to make amends. Said she wanted to cook for all of us. Said she missed us. Elena was touched. I wasn't, because I knew something was off. Something had shifted in Sylvia's tone, from passive to planned. This wasn't a peace offering, it was a test. And I accepted it, without hesitation. Because this time I wasn't walking in blind. I had questions, and I was ready for answers. The invitation was oddly formal. A printed card, real cardstock, sealed in a plain white envelope. No cute stickers, no handwriting. Just dinner at 7, dress nice, no gifts. Elena raised an eyebrow when she opened it. She's trying, she said. I didn't answer because I'd seen Sylvia try before. It always came with strings. The day of the dinner, everything felt slightly off. Our daughter had a small fever that morning. Not serious, but enough to consider canceling. Elena hesitated. She texted Sylvia to say we might not make it. Sylvia called within 5 minutes, her voice just a bit too chipper. Oh no, is she okay? Poor thing, but you two should still come, just for an hour. Elena promised to keep her updated. By afternoon, the fever broke. Our daughter bounced back like kids do. Elena sighed in relief, but I noticed the tension in her shoulders. She was nervous. She didn't want to disappoint her mom, and that made me more certain than ever. This dinner wasn't casual. It was curated. We packed a small overnight bag, just in case. Dropped our daughter at my sister's place with her favorite stuffed fox and a thermos of soup. On the drive over, Elena fixed her hair in the mirror. I just want this to go well, she said. I nodded, kept my hand steady on the wheel, didn't say what I was thinking, that Sylvia didn't want peace. She wanted proof. Traffic was worse than expected. We were almost 20 minutes late. Elena texted her mom, apologizing. No reply. But when we pulled up to the house, the porch lights were already on. Candles flickered in the windows. And Sylvia opened the door before we even knocked. Smile wide, eyes sharp, like she'd been watching the clock. So glad you made it, she said. Her voice was syrupy, too sweet. She kissed Elena on the cheek, then turned to me. And for the first time in years, she didn't say anything passive-aggressive, didn't even mention my job. Just stepped aside, gestured us in, and said, "Come on in. Everything's ready, and we've been waiting just for you." Dinner was already underway. Candles lit. Table set. Everyone dressed like it was some kind of holiday. The tension, however, was so thick it could have been carved like the roast. Her mother greeted me with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. Dinner felt like theater. Every smile was staged, every comment too measured. My wife Elena's father, Henry, tried too hard to act normal, cracking jokes that landed flat, asking questions no one really answered. And Sylvia? She kept glancing at my glass like it was the centerpiece of the whole evening. Then came the moment. She stood to refill everyone's drinks, lifting the wine bottle with ease. When she reached for mine, she didn't hesitate. She poured it smoothly, smiling, chatting, pretending this was just another quiet Sunday dinner. But I watched her carefully as she poured. Her fingers moved too deliberately, her posture too rehearsed. She was smiling, yes, but her eyes? They weren't smiling. She set the glass back in front of me, freshly filled like a gift. And I didn't touch it, not yet. Instead, I faked a yawn, stretched my arms, shifted my plate just slightly. "Actually, would you mind passing the salt?" I said as casually as I could. Sylvia turned toward the shaker at the end of the table, the moment I'd been waiting for. As she reached for it, her attention flickered. I made the switch. Quick, clean, almost surgical. I slid my untouched wine glass just to the edge of her place setting, and in the same movement, picked up the one she'd been drinking from all evening. She didn't notice, too focused on watching me drink from the glass she'd just poured. But I'd seen it. The way she uncorked that bottle earlier just a little too quickly. The way she tilted it slightly off the table when filling only my glass. Her body shielding the view. She thought I hadn't noticed her slip something from her sleeve. I didn't see what it was, but I saw her wrist flick, just once, just enough to know. Now she was watching me with that same smug tilt of her head, thinking I was about to down exactly what she'd planned. But I hadn't taken a sip. And the glass in front of her now? It wasn't hers anymore. It was the one she had poisoned. And she didn't even know it. I took a long, slow sip. Not from the glass she gave me, but the one she'd been sipping all night. Sylvia watched, smiled. She thought the plan was unfolding perfectly. I smiled back, and that's when the shift happened. Henry reached toward the glasses, half listening to a story, half reaching for a drink. He picked up the one nearest to him, the poisoned one, the one Sylvia thought she had handed to me. Her eyes followed his movement, casually at first. Then something clicked. A pause, a micro-expression, confusion, then horror. Her body went rigid. Her smile died halfway through her exhale. She glanced at the table. Something was wrong. The glass she had just refilled wasn't in front of me anymore. It was in front of Henry. A shift she hadn't planned for. A detail she hadn't noticed until it was already too late. "Wait," she blurted, voice cracking like dry wood. Too loud, too raw. Panic, instant and unfiltered. Henry blinked, looked at her, confused. Something wrong with the wine? Silence. Everyone stared. She forced a laugh. "Oh, no, not at all. Just strong vintage." I tilted my head, matching her tone. "Yeah, has a real kick to it." She didn't respond. Couldn't. Because now she didn't know what had gone where. She wasn't sure which glass was hers, which one was mine. And more importantly, who'd just ingested what. She sat down too quickly, knocked her fork off the table, fumbled to pick it up, and for the first time in years, she didn't have a snide remark ready. Conversation collapsed. Everyone sensed it. Her daughter, my wife, looked between us, catching on that something had just gone very wrong. "Mom, are you okay?" She didn't answer, just nodded, too fast, too awkward. Her husband excused himself from the table, said he felt lightheaded. She stood with him, offered to help, but she was shaking. He walked off toward the bathroom. She followed. I stayed seated, hands calm in my lap, watching the unraveling begin, thread by trembling thread. In the hallway, I could hear the low murmur of voices, hushed, urgent. Then came the sound of vomiting, violent, repeated. The whole table went silent. My wife stood. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't answer. Just calmly wiped my mouth, placed my napkin down, and said, "I think you should ask your mother." My voice was steady, too steady, which made it worse. Yeah, because they knew something was off, and I wasn't even pretending anymore. The mother returned alone, face pale, hands still shaking. Everyone stared. She said nothing, just sat down and picked at her food like nothing had happened. But the illusion had shattered. Whatever grip she thought she had, whatever mask she wore, it had slipped, cracked, and hit the floor. And she knew it, and I knew it, and now, so did everyone else. That was the real wine she'd poured tonight, not from a bottle, but from the fear of being exposed. And it was intoxicating. Henry was taken to the hospital that night. The paramedics said it looked like a severe reaction, rapid onset. But the truth came out later. The doctor told Elena that whatever he had ingested wasn't meant to hit that fast. It should have taken hours, not minutes. They said the wine was likely laced with a compound designed to be slow, subtle, untraceable for a while, but something he ate, maybe the spinach, maybe the dessert, accelerated the absorption. If it wasn't for that, we might not have caught it in time. He's stable now. Recovering slowly, but it'll take time. They're still running tests, still trying to figure out what she used. She, of course, hasn't said a word. Not to the doctors, not to the police, not even to Elena. But her silence says everything. We left shortly after Henry was taken away. Elena grabbed her coat in a daze, and I guided her to the car. The ride back to our house was quiet, not tense, just hollow. Like something had finally snapped, and no one knew how to name it. We didn't speak for the rest of the night, not in the car, not while brushing our teeth, not even when we slipped into bed lying shoulder to shoulder like two people on opposite ends of the world. The silence wasn't cold, it was heavy, the kind of silence that doesn't scream or accuse. It just sits with you, waiting. My wife didn't ask questions. Not yet. I didn't volunteer answers. I wanted her to sit with the same quiet I had felt for months, the tension of knowing something but not being believed. Now it was her turn. The next morning, I got up first, made coffee, sat by the window. She walked into the kitchen like she'd slept in wet clothes, not angry, not defiant, just tired. She stood there holding her mug, silent, staring at the back fence like it held some kind of answer. Then finally, "What did you do?" I looked at her over the rim of my mug. I protected myself. She shook her head slightly. "That's not what I meant." But I didn't give her the drama she was looking for. I switched the glasses. She spiked mine. Her husband drank it instead. She blinked. It wasn't the answer that stunned her. It was the simplicity, the calm delivery, the fact that I wasn't rattled. I didn't look for pity. I didn't perform righteousness. I didn't break down or get angry. I just said it, and that scared her more than if I'd shouted. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. I raised one brow. "Would you have believed me?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. That was enough. We didn't say much for the rest of the day. I went into the garage and started sanding an old table that had been collecting dust, hands moving automatically. But my mind was sharper than ever. Not angry, just aware. Of every moment she brushed off my concerns. Of every time she said, "That's just how she is." Of how betrayal, when it's subtle, slices deeper. That evening, I pulled out the footage. Our hallway cam had captured everything. The night Sylvia brought over the gift wine, the way she lingered in the kitchen, how she carefully swapped labels before slipping it into the cabinet. I put it all on a flash drive, labeled it plainly, left it on the nightstand, said nothing. Let her choose if she wanted the truth or not. I went out the next morning, took a walk, let the cold air burn the guilt off my skin. Guilt I didn't need to carry, but somehow still did. When I came back, she had watched the footage. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at me and said, "She's done this before, hasn't she?" It wasn't a question. 2 days later, she called her father. They spoke for 20 minutes. When she hung up, she told me everything. He believed me, said this wasn't the first time he'd seen that look in her mother's eyes. He once got violently ill at a dinner party, thought it was the oysters. Now, he wasn't so sure. My wife sat beside me on the couch, folded her legs up like a child, rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't say, 'I told you so.' Didn't need to." Some apologies don't come in words. They come in silence that's finally listening. Later that week, she made the call. I stood in the hallway and listened. No speakerphone, just her voice, firm but level. "No, Mom, you're not coming over. You're not calling. You're not seeing the kid." Pause. "I don't care what you thought. I don't care what you were trying to do. It's done. And if you show up here again, I swear on everything." She stopped, took a breath. "I won't protect you anymore." We spent the weekend cleaning, not like spring cleaning, like spiritual cleaning. She cleared out her phone. I cleared out the garage. We donated things she'd given us, put away old photos, started fresh. For the first time in a long time, our house felt like it belonged to us. The next family event, we didn't go, didn't send regrets, didn't explain. Let the silence speak for us. Let the truth settle where it needed to, and anyone who asked got the same answer. We're focusing on peace, not drama. 3 weeks later, Sylvia sent a letter, not an apology, a justification. She blamed stress, hormones, medication, said she never meant to cause harm. That's the part that stuck with me. Never meant to cause harm. But intent doesn't erase impact, and she had already shown who she really was, not once, not twice, but over and over again. A woman who saw control as love and manipulation as protection. We didn't respond to the letter. We didn't keep it. We didn't burn it either, just filed it away in a drawer like you do with any other warning sign. Not out of anger, but clarity. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are. It's not your job to fix them. It's your job to believe them. We never filed a police report, not because we couldn't, but because we didn't have to. The truth had already done more damage than any official paperwork ever could. Her name, once whispered with admiration at family functions, now carried a kind of cautious distance. People didn't know what happened exactly, but they knew something happened. The kind of something you don't say out loud, but that makes people shift uncomfortably when her name comes up. That was justice enough. The kind that doesn't need a courtroom, just time and memory. My wife asked me once, a few weeks later, if I ever regretted not making it bigger. Not pressing charges, not confronting her mother publicly, not turning the dinner table into a battlefield. I told her the truth. No. Because silence, when used with precision, is more surgical than a scream. Her mother expected chaos, expected me to explode, expected me to lose control so she could call me dangerous. Instead, I smiled. I passed the glass, and I let her drink her own plan. We have a child now, a girl. She's too young to understand any of this yet, but one day, she will. One day, I'll tell her about trust, about how it's not just given, it's earned, about how family can mean love, but it can also mean control disguised as concern. And I'll tell her this: if someone ever tries to rewrite your truth, you don't need to yell. You just need to know who you are and let their actions speak for themselves. Her mother still sends birthday cards, no return address, just a generic message and a signed name that we no longer say out loud. We don't throw them away, but we don't hang them up either. They go in a box in the closet labeled history. Not to be forgotten, not to be forgiven, just kept as proof that we saw it, that it was real, that we moved on anyway. Sometimes revenge isn't a dramatic reveal. Sometimes it's walking away while they scramble to pick up the mess they made. Sometimes it's silence when they expect fury. Sometimes it's growth they'll never get to be part of. That's what I gave her. Not a fight, not a scandal, not even the dignity of confrontation. Just a front row seat to her own downfall. Served cold in a glass she poured herself.